Mommy, where were you born?
I was born in a time when it's changeable. It was, when I was born there, it was Czechoslovakia, the Carpathian Mountains. And I was born in the city Munkac, or Mukachevo.
What street did you live on when you were a little girl?
What?
Where did you live as a little girl?
When I was very little, my father was a manager in a tool factory, like shovels and picks and things, tools for the gardens.
Who was the owner of the store?
I don't know.
That's when you were
I
very
never
little.
asked.
Okay.
Because my father was so many years away from that. But as I grew older, he opened a store from plate glass. My grandfather had a store where it was sold picture frames and dishes and
Yeah, go ahead.
and my father
I just want to make sure it's going. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
and my father opened in a garage, like a garage place, plate glass. He had workers who went out to, like a storefront was broken, the glass. He sent out the people to take the measurement and cut from a big, like a big wall glass, which lay on a table, and a working table, a large table, and cut the size, and he sent the workers to make it, to install it. They had workers and they had acquaintances who were builders. They built houses and they came to Father and gave measurements of the windows. And Father cut the glass to measurements, and the workers went out to the site and they installed the buildings. Also, they made armories on the border in the Carpathian Mountains.
For the
with
Czechs.
Poland.
The Czechs made armories. The Czechs had this armories. The Czechs.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was Czech.
Right.
And then in 38,
1 minute. So you moved from your first house, from the small house. You moved to the
city.
And yeah, what part? What street was that on? Where you moved?
That was a place. It was called Strelnice, ulica Strelnice, Löweldauca. The Hungarians called it Löweldauca. That's where we lived, in a house with two people, and they were having children, and they spoke the Czech language.
Didn't you live with your uncles?
What?
Didn't you live together with your uncles?
Later on. Grandfather built later a six-family house on the corner Mitrakova ulica, and there was the park, starting the park, which ran all the way to the bridge, and the same corner facing being a neighbor to the park, was built a big soccer field. After the soccer field was a tennis field where the citizens could play tennis who wanted. After the tennis, the Hungarian built a filled kádat.
Swimming, is it anywhere for swimming?
That's what I say. There be a pool. I couldn't remember the word.
Yeah.
The pool. After the tennis field, there was a big pool, but it was sad because they didn't let Jewish children or Jewish people into that pool. So I never went there.
But you went into the river.
The river, yes, the river, the Latorca ran along the park, through the bridge, and it went further down.
When did the Hungarians come into?
1939.
So till 1939 it was Czech.
Czechs. I went to Russian kindergarten at age 4. I remember the girl carried me there, and I had to stand outside and wait for the girl to come and pick me up because I couldn't walk yet home by myself.
Mm-hmm. So you went, and then where did Maiti and Yitzchak and Chaim, where were they? They went to Czech school too?
They went to Russian school.
And so 1939, you were 11 years old when the Hungarians came in.
No.
You were older. You were 12, 13. 13.
13.
Yeah.
12.
What happened when the Hungarians came in?
They, right away, they took the youngsters, young boys and older men. Older men, they took forced labor, and they sent them out to Russia because they were digging
trenches. Trenches? And during this time, Bobby Leah Malka's parents were in Sighet?
In Tach.
And Tach, how often do you get to see them?
I went often. Whenever my aunt, the youngest child, Rivka, called like I am, came to Mukachevo,
she would take you.
She picked me up and took me to Chachevo. I love to go to my grandparents because I had an aunt with an uncle. Also, my father's, from my father's side, that was my mother's parents, but the other family was Maged.
Feige Kassirer's family.
Was the family name of my father's sister.
Yeah, her name was?
Maria Malka.
And that was Feige.
They had children which were good friends for me. They came over, picked me up, but I was the same age, and they came and they picked me up by my grandparents. I used to, it was summertime sometime, so the woodshed was empty, so I organized a theater. My grandparents made me a crepe paper skirt, and they put a bench outside by the wall, and Feige and Toby were sitting there, and they were watching how I danced.
So you put on a performance.
I put on a performance
How old?
that I will always remember.
How old were you? When was the last time you went to Tage?
43,
So you were already older and still going to Tage.
yes.
So and then
I loved them, and it was a sad memory because I couldn't go more, because in 44 they took us away.
where were you? Where did they take you to? They told you that you had to leave your home.
The first, we were happy that they left us home over Passover. It was in April in Passover, and then we stayed home, and they pronounced that we should move after Passover right away. We should move into ghetto.
And that was in what year?
A certain area on Michalovska ulica was one border, and we moved into one room, just father, mother, and the grandmother who was living there.
What grandmother?
Grandfather wasn't alive already.
That's Heshber.
Tzvido.
Yeah. So Tzvido was there, but his wife.
Kleinhabe.
Yeah.
That was his sign of the store.
So she was, but her name was Ostreicher before she married Zaidi.
The other woman, the other wife,
Yeah.
was an Österreicher.
Right. Zaidi Heshber's first wife.
I
remember
remember
her?
very little because she passed away, poor woman.
And so, Zaidi Heshber was nifter when?
In the forest. Already.
Before the deportation.
He was, his grave was at home. We were visiting from here, and we found the grave. He was there. The stone, you know.
The
How do you call it?
Matzaiva.
The Messiah was there yet.
And then you have, so Zaidi, so you went in 1944, right after Pesach, you went into the ghetto.
Right after Pesach, we went to the ghetto.
And what did you...
We stayed 2 weeks. Luckily, we didn't stay for years like in Poland. So, by us, the war started already in 38, not in 39, because the Hungarians came in, and we had to put a star on the back and the front, and a yellow star. Let me emphasize that.
Did they make it hard for you to live?
My brothers were not home. My oldest brother, Henry, volunteered on a farm, on a pig farm, to help work there in order that they should leave him alone.
Right.
And Ignaz Yitzchak was taken into the army in Hungary, and they didn't get a uniform, but they had to wear their own clothes.
And Zaidi Israel?
Zaidi Israel was left alone.
And was he still working in
When
his
the
business?
Germans came, he cut his own beard. He was afraid they pull it, so he cut his own beard. He should not,
They shouldn't have what to pull.
not. He was afraid of the Germans.
So how long were you in the ghetto?
The ghetto, we were not long. We were put in after Schweiz. In May, we were put to Auschwitz
In 1944.
in 1944.
Or, okay. And then you were in Auschwitz for how long?
A year.
So
I mean, actually, I was 3 months in Auschwitz, and then I was sent to Oberschlesien, Wüstelsdorf, into a factory where they made hand grenades. How do I know that it was hand grenades? Because all I did all day is sharpen a piece of steel or iron. I am not naive.
yeah.
What it was but a little one. A woman brought it with a metal box on the shoulder, and she supplied me always that piece I had to put in. Then I had to take it out and it's sharp and put it in. All day long I had to do this.
Uh-huh. And where was this camp? Obersilesia.
That Poland.
It was Poland.
It was Poland.
And you worked in this factory till
Till liberation.
and when was liberation?
Liberation also May 8th.
So
Just exactly a year I was in the morning, 7:30, a Russian officer came, opened the door, said, "Girls, you are free to go." So right away I went over. I was together with my sister Malvina.
who's Malvina?
My
Mighty. Oh, okay.
and told her, "We are 5 girls from Mukachevo here in the line. We'll take the other Mukacheva girls and we'll march home." They didn't say a word. I collected 3 sisters,
Who were they?
also Mukacheva, and they worked there.
But you also went with Mariam, right?
I stood in line with my uncle's father's brother, Shulam Yosef, and he came with 3 girls,
Rivchu.
Rivchu, Mariam, and Eto.
And so you were the whole war.
The whole war the whole year we were together with my cousins.
You slept with them. You
We
worked
slept
with them.
and it was terrible. Slept with them. We slept one
row.
And how do you call those beds?
A bunk bed.
Bunk beds, but not one person sleeps on it. And all the 3 rows,
Yeah.
2 or 3 rows, I don't remember, slept 5 each. One turns, everybody turns. And we got a little bread every day, and my sister Malvina cut it
That's
for us.
Malvina's mighty.
Cut it, the bread so nobody fought over the bite larger or bite smaller.
Right.
She said that the girl who carried the box with those little metals brought me one time.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They brought you what? She brought you bread, the woman with the bowl with the pins?
What?
The lady with the pins, she brought you bread?
No, she didn't have nothing. She just spoke German. I suppose she was also a prisoner. But she did this. How do I know that I worked for grenades? Because there used to be air raids. Planes used to fly over, and we had to go down the basement. In the basement, they kept the heavy machinery, and girls were working on shells, like eggshells, where they cut with the machine the Gewind, Yiddish. They make the two rounds and then they screw it together.
The two halves. Half. The halves.
Two halves. And they made it.
Like an eggshell.
They made, how do you call that?
The grenade?
What does a electric bulb has?
Filament?
No. Now it doesn't come
Okay, it
into
doesn't
my
make a
head.
difference. But you were making the grenades.
So I saw those shells. It got me that it must be
Grenades.
grenades.
And so now you were, so then in May 8th, you were told by whom that you're free to go?
By a Russian officer.
So this was May 8th, 1945?
May 8th.
1945. So the Russian officer told you?
Yeah, and I asked him right away, which street leads to Czech border? And there were already people walking, so many people on the road. You see horses turned over and car turned over. And
how long did it take you?
So I put together the 10 girls and we went.
How long did it take you to go from, you never went back to Auschwitz?
No.
You went straight to the border?
I right away went to the Czech border and we walked from morning till sun setting, without water, without food, without bathroom.
Nobody stopped to give you food? Nobody gave you food from the...
No, so many people went. You know, they were too glad nobody bothered them.
How long of a trip was it? How long did it take you?
I think I remember it's gonna be 5 days.
It took 5 days to get...
Because we walked a lot, and we went with the train, and we went the final way. I wrote down in a notice, because when the officer said that we are free to go, the same time he said, girls, I'm going to take you in a magazine.
A warehouse.
And you'll pick up something. So we stayed to go with the officer, and we went in a warehouse. There were sacks full of change money, quarters, I don't remember what nationality the money was because I didn't want to pick up a quarter or a pfennig. There were jewelry pieces, so every girl got herself a necklace. It was with yellow glass, I suppose, not the real thing. So I picked up also one. And we arrived finally in Czechoslovakia. When we crossed the border, I asked, where is the repatriační úřad? That's the repatriation.
Yeah.
So they showed us to a building, and there were already people eating, and we asked, please, we didn't have no food all day. And they sat us down, they gave us bread, and they, a soup. I don't remember what I had. Maybe I wrote it down. After that, we didn't lay down, we went to the train station to go towards the Carpathian Mountain. So we went and we walked up. I had a notice when we were in the warehouse. I saw on the windowsill a little notice in pencils.
A notebook.
A notebook. So I started writing
like a diary. Like a diary.
8. května, I wrote down 1945.
So you were writing, you took little notes what you did that day.
Yes, and then...
How long did it take you to go from the train, once you were in Czechoslovakia, to get to Munkac?
A few days.
And what did you do for food?
I remember well in Mako because I had the first proposal.
Okay.
I saw the guy, we walked into the village, and there was the guard with the gun walking. I asked him, please, we need a room to sleep the night and something to eat. So he looked at us and he said, that house, go to that house. We come there, an elderly man opened up, and he showed us a small room, no carpet, bare, just
the floor.
Not very clean. That was already in Slovakia, I think. And he said, here you can sleep, and but I haven't got food, I'll make you a coffee. He asked me, do they have in Czechoslovakia sugar? Because he didn't have sugar. And then in the morning we got up and we went again. And he says I should stay. He has a son, and he'll be good for me. I should stay there. I said, thank you very much. I cannot stay. I have to see who's alive.
Right.
All my mind was full, who stayed alive, whom will I find?
Right.
And had
And so you continued on straight with Mighty and your cousins.
we had, the railroad was bombed, so the place is no train. So we walked and we traveled on with what we could. And then we came already to the Carpathian. Chop was a city. I remember that they told us we shouldn't go that way because they picked the people up for work to fix the bridge. So again, we went away from the train, and I went into the village, and I went into the man and answered the villager. I said, please, we are afraid to go by train. Take us into Mukachevo.
What did he have? He didn't have a car.
He had a wagon. He was a villager, and horses. So I gave him the necklace. All the girls kept the necklace. I was volunteer. Nothing mattered as long as we are going. And the necklace made it. We all 10 girls went on
The wagon.
and we went. He brought us into the city, Mukachi City Hall,
Yeah, that's the same Munkach City Hall
Yeah,
we
the
saw.
same thing. There it stopped, and everybody scampered, run, and I don't remember what we say goodbye for the man or thank you for the man.
You just ran.
And as we go, we heard that Dad is alive and he's living in grandfather's house.
Oh.
That was right there.
Yeah.
Shiny Young, whose sister was also in that 10 girls.
But they lived further down near your house.
I don't know where everybody ran to different places.
So when you came home,
So I came up, I found Schwarzer Rifsche. That's my sister-in-law later.
oops, leave it. I'll pick it up.
And
So she came because
she heard that father's a Munkach because we were liberated. Mukachevo was liberated earlier than the other cities. So Rifschu said father went to this train station to see if we are arriving. And can you imagine, I go with the street from the train, and father goes with 2 men, and we saw each other. That was joy.
Oh, wow.
That was a joy.
And Mighty was with you the whole time.
With you all the time.
And Chaim and Yitzchak, where were they?
They were, each was in a different
And
place.
Shaya also in a different place.
Shaya was with Chaya.
How did you meet them?
But Shloime Nebuch, my mother took him to a neighbor. I don't know. She didn't tell nobody where she put him. How do I know? I remember that we were in the train, and there were no child in the train. There were children, bigger girls.
Yeah.
Bigger girls who were able to work already.
Yeah. So when you went for deportation, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now what happened when you met up with Zaidi? Uncle Yitzchak and Uncle Chaim came later?
Uncle Yitzchak was there earlier. He found father. And Chaim was interesting. we were in the train already leaving
From Munkach.
Munkach because the Russians occupied Mukachevo under Stalin,
Right.
and we were not allowed to stay on Shabbos. I mean, they wanted us to work on Shabbos, on Saturday.
Shabbos, yeah.
And we cannot work on Saturday, you know. So we decided we're leaving Mukachevo. And we went in the Yitzchak picked himself up and went to Budapest to inquire whether there's an aliyah, whether there are people from the Bricha helping the people go to Israel. So he phoned back to Father, yes, we should come immediately.
To Budapest.
From Munkach to
Budapest.
We arrived in Budapest, Father, my sister Malvina, and Yitzchak. We were in the train, we stopped in Budapest. I opened the door, who's on the other side? A man, and who's the man? Reb Chaim.
Wow.
Chaim, a simcha gedela.
Yeah.
So, wie geist der Heim, so ein Stück Heim. Kim du State, du Meite, in Yitzchak, kim mit uns. So he came in, and we arrived to Austria.
To Vienna?
No, ich habe schon weiter.
Yeah.
We arrived to Budapest.
Okay.
So we found some sleeping place where to sleep on an old woman. And we got in touch with the people from the Bricha. And they said then and then we going with a truck. And we went that day with the truck, and we went to, with the truck brought us to Graz in Austria.
Right.
Where did he take us? In an armory. We slept on the bare floor. I don't remember if we ate something, but I remember if you had a towel, you were lucky. You put on the floor, under the face, a towel.
You had a bill.
And we stayed there a day or two, I don't remember how long we stayed, and then they took us to a Siedlung. That was a factory, the bill for workers' housing in Austria. It must have been under the Germans' housing. So in one apartment, they had as many families as there were rooms.
Rivchu Weinstein came with you? The Schwarzer Rivchu.
With Feige.
Yeah, they both came with you.
Yeah.
And, okay, so and where did you meet up with Shaya?
With my brother Shaya.
Yeah.
We were already in Austria.
Not in Graz, but in...
Not in Graz, Wüstegister, not Wüstegister. What do you call it? Brno.
Right, so you met... How did Shaya know to come to Brno?
He was in Prague yet, and we heard that Shaya is in Prague.
That's Prague.
That he's in Prague. So Shai heard we are in Brno. So they crossed each other.
Who crossed?
You know, they didn't meet on the Praha, they didn't meet on the Brno. They crossed each other. Then
Who crossed?
Shaya wanted to go to Austria. Yitzchak wanted to go to Prague.
So they crossed each other.
So they crossed each other. But Rivka, my aunt, who lived in Prague, said that she knew where we are, so Shaya found us, and Yitzchak came back.
Oh, so that's beautiful. And
So
where was Tante? And
That's how we met.
and Tante Rivka stayed in Prague.
Also there in Brno.
She came to Brno too.
Yes, she met her husband already when I got engaged
Where did you meet Tati? In Brno?
in Brno.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, he lived in one room, next room, Father, and Mighty, and Shai, and Chaim lived the next room.
And Chani and Suri, where were they?
Also there,
With Tati.
because they went with Moshe to Austria. They wanted to go to Israel too.
Oh. So everybody, now when you were in Brno, you were still going to go to Israel?
Oh, everybody wanted to go to Israel, but it was the English people there, and what was his name who didn't let the people in?
With a B.
I forgot already.
Belkin? With a B.
No, that G, I think. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So he didn't let, yes,
Let me tell you after.
yeah. Bevin.
What?
Bevin. Bevin was the prime minister.
Bevin.
Yeah, Bevin. He was a bad man.
I just forgot. I had pictures where we demonstrated against England, against Bevin in Bad Gastein. They made a parade there. All the girls and men wear white blouses and skirts and demonstrated.
So when did you make up your mind that you're not going to?
I didn't make our mind. We got in touch with our uncle David
In Israel.
in Israel. So we are looking forward meeting them. Then the uncle wrote a letter, please, if you can, go another place because the situation is very bad.
In
No
Israel.
in Israel. There was no housing, there was no food, everything is very bad. So we started looking how we get out from that problem.
Right.
You couldn't work because you couldn't take away from the Austrian the work.
So you weren't
we
going to
lived-
stay.
We lived from the UNRWA. The UNRWA supplied us with oatmeal boy. Let me tell you about the oatmeal. We ate it for breakfast. But there is the food was cooked with wood. It's a wood stove. So where do you take wood? Cut wood to make food. So my sister Mighty, she was a smart girl. She burned the oatmeal.
Oh, wow.
And she cooked with oatmeal.
Oh, wow.
Can you imagine? And we didn't want the UNRWA should know what we are doing with them.
But you used it.
But we lived through to tell the story.
Right. When did Mighty get married?
She got married already here
In America?
No, in Austria, while still in Austria. And father was in Austria. So my sister married there.
And she decided she's not going to Israel also.
Oh, she was so much for Israel. But, I mean,
Everybody
you
wanted.
cannot sit forever in Austria.
Right. So when did you decide to come to America?
By then, father came out, Chaim came out, so she wanted to be with the family.
When did you decide to come to America then? When did you decide?
When your father proposed to me, and he will go to America. He has a sister in Detroit, and he'll get a certificate from his sister. So that's what happened.
So when you got married,
Your father proposed, and I said, listen, if you listen to me and you say, then it will be a party. There was no love. I didn't know him. Proposed. I didn't know him. I said, listen, we're not marrying till they call us from the consulate. We're gonna keep in touch. We're gonna marry when they call us to go to United States. So we they called us for next week, Tuesday, to go to United States. And Friday we organized a Chepe. Sinds ik kan sappen naar de Chepe en in de nachten. Then Friday night, the Seder Friday night, my cousins came from Bad Gastein. They came, and two other people, and that was the wedding Seder.
How many people got married about the same time you did?
Most of them who were single there.
Where did Tante Rivchu get married?
Also there, Feige Grünberger got.
What did you use for a gown?
For what?
A wedding gown.
I don't know. The wedding gown came, I don't know who bought it, who took it away, don't know nothing.
But you got married.
And got married.
So how long were you in Branau?
And Branau was from 45 to 47. I came out in 47.
And how did Zaidi Israel get to America?
We sent people.
You sent?
No, not me. Helen.
Oh, Helen Urowitz.
Urowitz's aunt sent her.
Yeah. She was called Babchi, right? She was Babchi?
Ibi.
Yeah, but they called her, Helen called her Babchi. She married Helen's grandfather after the grandmother passed away.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So you got married there, and then you came to the United States in what year?
47.
47, and you lived...
I lived in how do you call it? 18th Avenue.
Oh, Bensonhurst.
Bensonhurst for the first 3 months. And Shmiasel thought it's not Orthodox enough, so we moved to East New York. Lived in Belmont Avenue, East New York.
I remember Belmont Avenue. That was
can-
Brownsville.
You can remember that?
Yeah, those are the push carts.
Yeah.
I remember the push carts. That was the last of the push carts.
Yeah.
And
Chester
then
Street.
from Chester Street. So that was your first real home, was Chester
Yeah.
Street. And you lived in Chester Street till Reven was born.
Yeah. Not in Chester. We lived Saratoga Avenue.
Yeah, where was Reven born? In Saratoga?
Saratoga Avenue.
Uh-huh. And Shaya lived with you. First, Zaidi came out to America. First, Zaidi, Shaya.
Shaya, Yitzchak, and Tati.
Yeah, all came. Oh, Chaim was
And they
married.
stayed with me
And
in
Uncle-
Saratoga, in Chester Street.
Uh-huh. And how long did they live with you?
Yitzchak married from my house, and then Shaiko was living on Saratoga Avenue with me yet. Father married,
And everybody started to move.
so I was, after River was born, I was already, Shaya was meeting Piri.
And she was also
She
from
was
Mubaz.
visiting from Israel, and they saw each other and
And they got married.
they got married.
And then everybody settled and grew up. And it is amazing. It's amazing.
Boy,
What a dream. What a dream.
yeah,
Okay, so this is your story.